everyone. Welcome back to the Living Generationally podcast. I am so excited that you have joined in for another podcast episode. And it is a lovely day outside today. Like the sun is shining. We're in spring. I don't know when spring exactly ends. I'm not too sure. But I am so joyful of just being able to go outside and get the sunshine and absorb the sun. It is beautiful. And if this is your first time listening to the Living Generationally podcast, I'm your host, like I mentioned, Brianna Laurie, and I am a young adult who's passionate about creating a meaningful life through fostering purpose, gratitude, and accountability. And I want to welcome you back to the Living Generationally podcast, where I'm doing just that. I get the wonderful privilege each week to come on here and encourage you to consider how your daily actions and decision making not only impact the current generation, but also the next generation as well too. I believe that starting with how we steward our everyday life can create legacies that carry on into the future. And that is powerful and beautiful and amazing. And who does not want to live an intentional life where you're considering the decision making that you are going about and the actions that you're doing, how that's not only impacting your life but also the lives of those around you. And that's so important, and that we consider that. um yeah. And in today's podcast episode, it's kind of going to be like, it may be a little bit everywhere, honestly. Like it may be like I have some thoughts, and I just have like a list of things that I kind of want to run through, Lord willing that I reach all those points that I want to talk about. But it was just something that's been pressing in my heart, something that the Lord has been growing me in, and kind of just something I've have been truly thinking about and wrestling with, and having to confront and deal with the uncomfortability of it. And maybe wondering, what is it? And it's the idea of getting out of the box that has held me captive. And that is going to be the title of this podcast episode too. And man, that is, here and now you're just like, man, what is she talking about? But there's so much here and so much that I want to cover. um yeah, but I think I'm just realizing more and more that the way that the Lord has grown me and my passions and the things that he has placed in my heart, and or even the way I want to do life, or he's encouraging me to do life, is completely different than what I've been raised in and used to. um but also the culture and kind of many of the the ideas within culture, of how we should live our life and how our life has to look like. And I believe that the Lord has been challenging me in that, and it's been hard because, as you know, when you're used to the way of life, living a certain way and having a certain set of ideologies of what your life is going to look like, and having it kind of planned in your mind, when the Lord kind of gives you an opportunity to see it differently, it is hard to confront that because you're so used to thinking the way that you've been thinking. You kind of have this plan in your heart and in your mind, like, Lord, yes, I have kind of have it figured out. And now I'm just like at the point where I'm like, and none of us truly have it figured out. Like we are also growing and learning, as we're on this journey called life, and as we're walking with the Lord and growing with Him. But I think sometimes we can have like these idealized versions or plans in our heart, and it's not wrong to plan. It's a good thing to plan. But when things don't go according to plan, that can be hard to kind of navigate and say, like, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. And that's kind of where I've been, and where the Lord has been guiding me and leading me. And if you listen to past podcast episodes, I've talked about just the season of life and just navigating, being 23 and just recently graduating college, and actually recently turning 23 as well too. And just the expectations that, um, I feel like it's it's odd because, yes, there's a societal pressure, I think, but also I don't have to follow the ways of the world. Like we know that according to what we read in scripture. Yet I feel this pressing, to follow what's expected of me by the world, and me not heading in that direction, I feel like I'm a failure or I'm not getting anywhere in life, where that is not true. the Lord is using these moments to guide and lead me where He wants me to go, not in what the world has expected for me to do. Because I got a degree in a specific field, um, that I need to pursue it in a way that is kind of expected of me. And it's not wrong to go to college and get a degree and go to have a career. I'm not saying that. I just think it's so systematized, and it's kind of like, okay, this is how my life is going to look like, and this is how the plan of life is going to look like. And it's just not satisfying to me. It's like so dissatisfying to me. And I feel like more and more people are waking up, especially the younger generations. Like we're kind of questioning like just the reality of like, you work your whole life, you get a job, you go to college, you get a job, you work your whole life, then you die. And it's like, I feel like the younger generation is starting to kind of question that structure of life and asking the question, is there more to life than what is being presented by the world? And it's a hard question because when your family and generations before you um kind of molded or been molded by society, and there's this expectation, it's kind of like, oh man, then I have to follow in those footsteps because it's already certain, in a sense that I've seen it before and it's been modeled before. um but now you're like, that's not actually where the Lord is leading me. He's actually putting other desires and passions on my heart, and that is like a hard place to be in, and to wrestle with. And I love, like, the thing about me, like, this is kind of like a side tangent, but like I like getting my hands dirty. I like doing work, so that isn't a problem for me. It's just more of like, um, I guess passion. And I feel like I'm like processing right now too, because you don't always want to follow passion, even though that is the ideal version. Um, because passion fluctuates, and if you're pursuing something just solely based on passion and not willing to work hard, there's a imbalance there, and something needs to be checked. But just overall passion in life, and just the trajectory of how I want to steward this life for the Lord and how He's leading me. And it's been something I've been wrestling with, as you can probably see through my processing with you now. But I feel the Lord just knocking at my heart and just calling me to step out of this box of the system and society and what's expected of me, and kind of pursue what He is calling me to do, and not what is expected by my family or by others as well too. And that feels like a struggle and a wrestling as well too. And praise the Lord, I have a very gracious mama who um truly just wants the best for us, and but while also guiding us and kind of having conversations with us, and asking, hey, like, hey, like, what do you want to do, and what is going on. But um I'm just realizing that there are goals and aspirations that I have in life that are not a part of the norm. And and that's okay. I'm learning to have that be okay. um and the reason why it's uncomfortable for me, because I feel like I've adopted other people's goals and their desires and their dreams, and haven't actually recognized maybe the talents that the Lord has given me and placed in my life, or even some of the skills that have been cultivated, that He has placed within me, that I kind of been like, oh, I don't want to pursue that. I kind of feel scary. That's unknown territory, and I don't want to enter there. And the Lord is really challenging me to take His hand and to trust Him, and to be led by wisdom, obviously. And I want to be wise in what I do, and um, but like right now, like, even the way right now I don't have a job. I do technically have a job. I help out my mama at her hair salon. I just clean and I do some of her bookkeeping for her, and she pays me for that. So I do have some kind of income. But it's just, I don't know why I'm clinging on to this idea that I need to go out and um have a career and pursue that. Like, I don't know. It just, I mean, I do know why. It's the way the culture and society kind of is like pressuring us to be committed to career and doing that as well too. And it's been something that I've been wrestling with. It's uncomfortable because I just don't think that is the way in which the Lord is calling me to live life for him. And there's a difference between a career and a job. Like I want to be able to, especially in a season of singleness where I actually have extra time to find ways. And even honestly, even that has been something pressing. Oh man, there's so much here. But I feel like there's just so many different things that are here as well. But just like starting a business and learning how to start a business and doing some freelance work, which is a, yeah. So there's so much there, but I'm just kind of veering off. I'm just trying different things, which is, I believe, is a really good thing. Like just trying things and seeing like, hey, like what do I like and what I don't like? What are some skills that the Lord has placed in my life, and how can I use that to glorify Him, but also to serve others as well too, and to make money, which isn't a bad thing, to save and to help provide in the season of life, like with my mama, but also later on in the future, Lord willing, being able to have family businesses with my future husband, and just being able to build the home economy in that way, as we are unified and united in vision and mission and in our goals as well too. But I just see that the Lord is calling me to just step out of the box, and when I just take that leap of faith, He's given me so much blessing and assurance, and that he's guiding and he's leading. And though there's still doubt in my heart, honestly there is, because like, Lord, what if this happens? Like, what if a health issue comes up? What if this happens? What if this happens? I was like, okay, Lord, like I don't I don't know. He told me and tells us time and time again in his word that he will guide, he will lead, and he will provide. And that doesn't mean that we should just sit there and do nothing and just be like, yeah, Lord, you got it right. It's like, no, like, Lord, I'm gonna work heartily unto you and just take a leap of faith. But when you're creating your own business, when you are being an entrepreneur and going that route, you don't have insurance. You don't have assurance of insurance. You don't have those things. So it's like learning to walk in wisdom in that as well too. I feel like it's a whole nother topic, but it's like stepping out in faith in the uncomfortability of like these different assurances that would be had if I had a career or a job within yeah. But I think I'm just learning to just be okay with the unknown and just be okay with saying, Lord, this feels really kind of scary. Lord, it does. It does feel kind of scary, but I know that you're leading, and I know that you're guiding, and I know that you're faithful and that you are good. Um I don't know what that sound was, but yeah, just kind of saying like, but I don't want to be held captive also, and the Lord knows that. Like, if I were to just walk this line of having a career and making this money and stuff like that, it just like, it would feel so dead to me, because I would know that it's I'm just staying inside the box. I'm just being held captive when that isn't what the Lord is calling me to do. And you may be hearing this, you may have a career, you may have a job, and be like, or have a career, let's start with that, and say like, well, that kind of sounds dreary, and I don't want to discourage you. Like, the Lord is calling you, like, follow what the Lord is calling you to do. um but this is just how I feel, and this is, I just wanted to share this because maybe there's someone else out there who's in a similar situation where they're wrestling, and like the Lord is calling them out of this box that feels like a box. It truly does. Like, it just feels like you're stuck and you're just held captive, and you're just expected to live a certain way and live. And yeah, so I'm just wanted to share that for that reason. Um, but um, another point that I wanted to talk about is also the idea of hardship and suffering, these are, I'm telling you, these points are a bit all over the place. You may listen and be like, okay, where's she going with this? But I think the Lord is teaching me to see suffering differently than what the world, or what the norm is, kind of how we view suffering and hardship. Um and to see it as kind of like fuel to grow closer to him, but also to grow in my character, and yeah, to be built in him. I think oftentimes we view hardship and suffering as kind of like this fork in the road where it just kind of stops us in our track, and it often does. Like, there are seasons of life where it can, but it doesn't have to be um forever. It doesn't have to be forever, and that's something I've been processing and working through in my thoughts with the Lord, and in my prayer time with the Lord as He's stretching me. Is that like, I want to have, I want to be resilient, and true resilience doesn't come from ignoring the hardship, but it comes from actually acknowledging the hardship and walking through it and saying, Lord, this is hard, but I've known from your word and other testimonies that you are good and you are faithful and you are true, and you have said that you will use it for good. So Lord, I'm trusting that even though this is hard and this is uncomfortable, and I'm going to confess that it's hard, it is uncomfortable, and it's stretching, and that it's breaking me, but I know that there is a deeper blessing in the breaking, even though right now it doesn't feel that way. And I want to encourage you in that, because I think oftentimes, like, we hear either from the world, we hear hardship and suffering as like, oh, just like it's hard, ignore it, like, um you don't have to overcome it, just stay there. Or um I feel like that's kind of the lingo I hear from the world, but then also from like the church. And as I say that, I mean like Christianity and the culture, I don't know, for lack of better words. It's like, I feel like we, I don't know, because some people, I feel like some churches do a really good job at explaining hardship and suffering, but I think oftentimes it's like, or how I've kind of like come to see it as, is that we see hardship and suffering as like, okay, yes, the Lord will use it for good, and we kind of leave it like that. But it's like, we don't talk about how hard it can be, like how hard it truly is, and that it's okay to acknowledge to the Lord that it is hard and that it is breaking you. It's okay to confess that and to be real and say, Lord, like, this is actually harder than what I anticipated, harder than what I've ever wanted for my life. But Lord, I know you're good. I feel like that is more real and authentic than just hearing someone say, like, the Lord will use it for good. Or that kind of cliches that we hear, even though that there's truth within it, we kind of hear these cliches and it's hard to accept it, because sometimes it feels like it's without compassion. And I feel like that's for something that the Lord's been stepping me into, because I've put on that mask, I guess, or that perspective where, okay, Lord, you're going to use this for good. And I kind of like white knuckle, I don't know if that's the word, like I kind of hold my fist like, Lord, you're going to use this for good, but like I'm gripping on, and feel like I'm barely breathing, instead of saying like, Lord, this is hard, and confessing it. And that's something that the Lord has brought me back to, because I just forget that I can be real with the Lord, because I'm fallen. I mean, yeah, I'm fallen. I'm sinful. I'm living within this flesh that is just hard to have that perspective when it's just hard. It's just hard. And I think the Lord is um teaching me to step outside of what the world paints hardship and suffering as, but also the church as well too. Um and to step more into his word and what he says clearly in scripture, um which should be the standard in which how we communicate about these different topics. But sometimes I feel as though that, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we have this idea that holiness is without the reality of human emotions and feelings. It's like, no, like Jesus, is the purest example of holiness, and he is pure, and he's without sin, but yet he had feelings and emotions and that were deep. And I feel like sometimes we disregard that because we don't know how to deal with it. We can just quickly tell someone like, oh, like the Lord will use it for good, and we don't know how to be with someone who's actually suffering in such a way. um and that leads to the idea of also breaking. Like there's a breaking as well too, like when you're going through a hardship and a suffering, and learning to embrace it. And I truly believe that also creates resiliency is when you not only acknowledge the hardship and suffering that you're going through, and you confess that to the Lord, but there's also a breaking in that as well too, and you just embrace it. Because I think when you try to resist it, like it just, I don't know, I'm learning. So I'd love to hear your perspective as well too, and down in the comments. But it just feel as though like when you try to resist the hardship and kind of say like, oh, it's not hard, it kind of just feels like not being very honest. um and and I feel like we're missing out on an opportunity to experience the breaking that would draw us closer to the Lord, which sounds odd. It sounds odd, but I believe there's blessing in the breaking, even though it feels completely opposite of what we envision a blessing to be. And also the system. um I believe the Lord is calling me outside the system, whether it be education or, I feel like these are topics that can each have its own podcast episode that can we dive in deeper, which I feel like I should do, but this is kind of like me just shoving it all in one podcast. So here you go. But it's like, man, there's some deep stuff here. We have the education system, we have the health system, and we even have, I'm trying to think, there's another one that I was thinking of. There's education, there's health, there's also other areas as well too, but the Lord is calling me outside of what the norm is and what we've grown comfortable leaning on, and just, I feel like he's magnifying this idea of localism and the home economy, and building the home economy, and community, and yeah, friendships and relationships. I feel like he's magnifying that. We've grown, like we have to realize this, like the system, like education system, even like the government, like this has, like, this is you. I'm trying to. It's unique in the sense that like we've used to rely on one another, and now we're relying on an outside source that doesn't really care about us. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, yeah, it's a lot there, and over time, I feel like there's gonna be more podcast episodes about that as I continue to process and learn and grow as well too. And yeah, and I also have like points about like feeling trapped in entitlement. And I did a podcast episode on entitlement. If you want to listen to that, you can. I think that was the last podcast episode. Yeah, that was the last podcast episode. No, actually, no. It was two podcast episodes away. So you can go back and listen to that podcast episode. I think it's called Overcoming Entitlement, or the Generational Effects of Entitlement, and learning to break free. And I would truly encourage you to go listen to that episode, because I'm learning so much about entitlement and how, oh man, like I'm so entitled, and it is not pretty, it's not cute, and it's something that the Lord is walking me through, and as I learn, as I'm confessing and bringing it to him, it's painful because I'm like, man, Lord, this is ugly, like, but it's freeing as well too. It's freeing. And um yeah, I felt captive and trapped for so long because it just, I don't know, like it, and I feel like many people are feeling this way. Like many more people are feeling this way, where they feel trapped in a job that they don't like. They feel trapped in the ideas of society and what they're expected to, how they're expected to live, and how life should look like by the by peer pressure or by what others are saying, and it feels so trapped and I feel so captive. And it's like, Lord, I don't want to live this way where I am trying to please everyone besides you. It's like, no, Lord, what are you calling me to do? It's like, for example, like I want to be a wife and a mama, and I want to be home with my kids. I want to prioritize that. And I know that that isn't something that everyone can do, but I do want to try my darndest to do that and to be able to be home and to build the home economy and to see it as something that's beautiful. And that's something that isn't talked about a lot. That, like, the idea of the home economy, people listen to that and they're like, wait, what is a home economy? Like, I don't know what that is. The idea of um um, building generational legacies and living in such a way where we're honoring those around us. We're honoring those who came before us. We um, are living intergenerationally, where we are valuing the our mother and our father and our grandparents. And I know some of us have hard situations where that isn't the case, or where it's maybe harder to do that, but we can also create, we can be the ones who swim, is it downstream, because we're swimming apart from the brokenness and we're swimming downstream and starting something new. But if you were part of a family who was strong, and it's like, it's that idea of family, that's a whole nother podcast episode too. It's like the idea of family has been so um tainted within our culture that it's so bad, and it's something that the Lord is still teaching me daily. um yeah, but I just feel like there's so much here, and I just I feel like I should just made individual podcast episodes, but I feel like you wouldn't have gotten the fullness of what I wanted to communicate if I did it that way. But um yeah, even the idea of success, I think this is like a touchy topic and controversial, because I feel like there's like two perspectives: the idea, the way the world views success, and then the way that it seems that church culture has expected success to look like. I don't know. I feel like there's so much here. Like, culture idolizes success, or they have like this view of success where like do it at all costs and all means, and that's not the way of success that I want. That's not the success I desire. But there's also church culture where it's like, well, if you have riches, or if you have, like, it's kind of like poverty is more, is put above riches. It's poverty is kind of elevated, and if you had resources or wealth, if you're wanting to build generational wealth, it's kind of looked down upon. um and I feel like there's so much there as well too that needs to be discussed, because there, um I understand, scripture is very clear about riches and not idolizing, so that is something that we should be on the lookout for. But that doesn't mean we can't build generational wealth, or we can't be successful in our businesses, or I don't know. I just feel like I've adopted so many different ideas that the Lord is calling me to step out of what has been expected by culture and even by church culture, and go to His Word and be renewed, have my mind be renewed on His Word, and pursue what He's calling me to pursue in a way that glorifies and honors Him, and not caring what everyone else says, because I'm not living for what people are saying. I'm living for Jesus and Him alone. And as long as He is satisfied and in me, and I'm pleasing Him, I am satisfied with that. I don't need the opinions of everyone else to um say that, like, oh, like, you have to be doing this, or you need to be doing this. The Lord knows my heart, and I'm kind of tired of trying to explain my heart, because it's like only the Lord truly knows my heart, and I don't need to explain everything to everyone and what He's wanting to do in my life. um yeah, but I think that is just some things that the Lord is calling me to step out of the box of, and of this feeling of captivity, because I've been kind of going with the way society is expecting me to live, or the way that church culture is, or the different perspectives within that realm, but just gleaning and learning from His word and doing what He has called me to do and living according to His word. And um, yeah, I feel like there's so much here, but I hope that you're able to glean some wisdom, or some or glean some wisdom. That sounded so prideful. Oh no, I'm like, yeah, you know what I meant. But I hope that this podcast was encouraging to you, and that yeah, maybe you feel like me, where you just feel like the Lord is calling you outside of this box or the system, whatever word best fits the blank. But yeah, it's time to do what the Lord is calling us to do, and not the world, or even what others are expecting you to do. And we can be respectful in that, but at the end of the day, we aren't living to please man. We're living to please the Lord, and that is so freeing once we actually truly start to live in such a way. It's so freeing. Yeah. And with that, that is the end of today's podcast episode. And yeah, until next time. Oh, also, sorry. If you're listening on YouTube, I would appreciate if you were to subscribe to the channel. It helps living generationally to grow, and that is my desire, for it to grow and more people to jump on the bandwagon of living generationally and just being intentional with the way that they're living life. Um, and if you're listening to Spotify or Apple, I would appreciate if you leave a rating or review. It just helps the podcast to grow. And now, with that, that is the end of today's podcast episode. Have a lovely day. And until next time, live with legacy leading to the future. Goodbye, friend.